Good morning, everybody. Music Man Mike here with you at BCB Live on Rockapedia. We are the safest station in the nation. Joining me today, as usual, the producer, Dylan. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty well today. How about yourself, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. It's a Tuesday morning, and it's better than Monday. Monday was just not good. Mondays are always bad.
Yeah, especially after Halloween. I gotta say I'm with you on that for sure. It was a little bit tough rolling into work yesterday, but
yeah. Well, Sunday was extra double duty day for me because we talked about it last week. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm a Saints fan, but we had a Saints game yesterday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, and then the Cowboys that night while the trick-or-treaters were coming to my door. So I did watch the Cowboys game, and they both won. The Cowboys won. The Saints won. They beat the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on their home field. So that was pretty awesome. We are without Gypsy Joe today. Joe had something going on. He could not join us. But I have a special guest for us today, and I'm very excited about it. I've been talking to this gentleman for a couple weeks now, trying to get him on the show. He did try to weasel out on me this morning because he said he had a late night last night, but I didn't let him weasel out. He's here with us. Zach Barthelman, how are you, sir?
I am well. I'll try to be as coherent as possible. It's great to see you, Mike, and Dylan. Nice to meet you. I see you're rocking a cardigan just like myself. So,
hey, man, it's getting to that weather. It's about time. I've been waiting all year for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good time of year.
Yeah, down here.
Yeah, great to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
You too, buddy. Good to see you.
I feel like this is my 15 minutes of Andy Warhol fame. Yeah. But so I'm flattered. Thank you. Good to see you.
No, you too, man. And that's really what the show's all about. I was telling somebody this morning, I was telling Shelly in the Human Resource Department, I said, I talk to guys on the phone, I say, do you want to come on and do the show? I mean, we've known each other since we were 16. You and I have known each other since I was like 25 or 26, all these different people that I know in my life. And I'll spend 30 minutes on the phone talking to him and say, hey, we got to do the show sometime. He goes, yeah, it sounds good. I'll do it. I said, well, let me tell you what we just did. We did 30 minutes on the phone that could have been a great show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, so this is a really cool thing you're doing. Yeah, I dig it.
No, we like it. And in case you don't know, and I've explained this before, and I'll say it again because I want everybody to understand, this is a part of the BCB Live TV station that we run. So it's basically for the drivers. We have 250 drivers in our fleet, and we keep them entertained with all kinds of stuff, whether it's news, weather, sports, different things like that. But the Rockapedia came about because, it's just one of those things that I like to talk about. And I got a lot of memories, a lot of connections with people like you. And so why not share that kind of stuff? And they seem to dig it. So it's growing. It's growing. It's a slow process, but it's getting there.
Yeah, more power to you. I like it.
So Zach and I met back when he was just turned 16, probably 15, basically, 15.9 years old.
Yeah, Paul barely let me in the door, but yeah, that was my first gig at the old Silver Bullet.
Well, Paul wasn't even old enough to be checking IDs, just so you know.
No, he wasn't. But I didn't drink at that time. I was well behaved, so I just, I think he chilled out. But anyway, yeah, that first gig was with your band actually opening up, and I don't know if you went. I was very obviously nervous and just intimidated. Here are these older guys that have been at it. I believed, I'm going to name check a funny band, which is Tora Tora.
Yeah.
I think you played with them, right?
We opened up for Tora Tora at the
that was probably
at the Coyote
13.
Club. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was dying to go, but way too young at that point. So anyway, I had a lot of admiration for you guys and a lot of the other bands in that scene,
Yeah, we definitely had our foot in the door. The band he's talking about is Love and Rotation or 69 Flowers.
At the time of 69 Flowers, I don't know how long.
The Tora Tora show was Love and Rotation opening up, and then wasn't too long after that we kind of parted ways. I mean, one at a time. We slowly but surely got out of that band, and I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I was replaced by Tony Fortner, so I got the boot, so to speak. But Tony took my place, and then Zach eventually got kicked out or quit. I'm not sure which. Chad eventually got kicked out or quit. I'm not sure which. And Mike was the only person in the band. They changed the name to Psycho Love Tribe. And then Mike added all these guys, great musicians, great guys that were in the scene that we knew. I mean, we all knew each other, just like you and I knew each other. It didn't matter. I mean, when I met Zach and Chad, they were like 16 years old, and I was like 24, 23. So it didn't matter how old you were. It mattered that you were into it. You could show up for practice. You could do the gig. You could be semi-professional, and that was what it was all about. So yeah, by the time that we played with you, it was me and Zach got back together and said, you know what? So this is a good entryway into the scene at the time. So
Sure.
when Zach and I lost our jobs with Love and Rotation, we got together one day at my house and we thought we need to put a band together. So if you remember that time period, it was kind of like Dead Orchestra was in their heyday. And Apostasy and all those guys, those hard rock, heavy metal, thrash almost stuff was out. And me and Zach, and that's kind of where Psycho Love Tribe was going. They were going that direction. That's why we didn't quite fit in anymore. And Zach and I decided, hey, let's put something together that we like. What do we like? I like Mother Love Bone. I like Ted Nugent. I like the Rolling Stones. I like all that stuff, like almost hippie type stuff that groove rock that nobody was playing. I thought, yeah, let's do that. Let's go. Just go turn things upside down. So that's what we did. And then you guys came along and we saw you, and I thought, God, these guys are kind of like what we're doing. It's very cool rock. You don't have a mosh pit going during the show.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where we fit in. I always felt like those, the thrash acts or Deado, those guys I always felt like probably didn't respect us. But, and we got I think we covered, while we were covering songs before we were writing songs, I think everybody knows we covered about a gazillion Pearl Jam songs. So we caught a little bit of flack for that, but that might have been well deserved. But
was that Shaded Groove?
That would be that's when we were playing all covers. I think we might. Yeah, that was basically it. I think by the time Honey formed, we were really
Honey. Okay, yeah.
That was just, we were concerned with originals in that band primarily. So, yeah.
And Casey Lobaugh was Casey Lobaugh. Casey Lobaugh was in that band.
He was in Honey, yeah.
Yeah.
And Ken Privet.
Okay.
And Kevin Meese on drums, and Chris Summerall, who was with Casey and Trippin' Pig, was with us for a short time before Kevin joined. And actually, Brad Robinson was with us for a short time on drums before Kevin came in.
I've played in several bands with Brad Robinson before.
Yeah, I even Sean got up on Sean, his brother, and speaking Psycho Love Tribe, got up on stage, and I think we played War Pigs, and of course, he's a bad bass player.
Oh, he is, for sure. Yes.
No, I was just thrilled. I mean, that was like one of those spontaneous kind of magical moments that you carry with you.
So Sean lives in Hawaii now. Still plays bass just for fun. And he was in a band that was from here in Dallas. Remember that?
Was it Jibe?
Jibe.
Yeah. I never saw them, but I remember that happening.
I never saw them either, but they got at least 2 to 3 CDs or albums out years ago, and then they reunited recently and did some shows. Of course, Sean wasn't part of it, but I did send him the link on Facebook or somewhere, just let him know that these guys are getting back together again. But yeah, Jibe played at Trees and places like that in downtown Dallas, and Sean was a big part of that. But yeah, you're right. He was an excellent bass player. I mean, he was outstanding as far as bass players in Wichita went at the time.
Yeah, he really was. So I'm trying to think if those bands I was a part of in high school, if we played anywhere other than the Silver Bullet. I think we played the Aviator. We played with some people might remember the Millions from Nebraska, but that was a big moment. Casey was a fan of them, and we opened with them. And then I think we did this showcase in Nebraska, in Omaha, which was just kind of silly. But at that time, like, well, maybe we'll get signed, and all this kind of stuff. It was a good experience. But I mean that whole Silver Bullet scene was pretty much what I mean. I think we played like one New Year's, we played like 3 nights in a row. People had enough of us probably, but but yeah. Anyway, so and I just checking out your chat with Mike Lacey actually, and that was bringing back some memories. I didn't really know. I mean, I was so much younger. That was kind of, especially Mike. You didn't mess with Mike. And, but he respected me as a guitar player. We just kind of would, acknowledge, nod at each other, but he was concerned with other things rather than.
He was a standalone musician, so to speak. I mean, he was
another talented guy.
Very, very, probably one of the best guitar players in Wichita. I was lucky to be with him in a band. Lucky to write music with him. I mean, this guy could put songs together and just make me look like I was sitting still doing nothing when I was supposed to be writing lyrics. He could come up with ideas. He could throw a bridge in there where it's supposed to be a bridge, and the choruses were in the right place, and the guitar solo was perfect. And yeah, he was and still plays. I mean, if you watch the interview, you saw that he still does noodle around a little bit. But
I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate he'll never get into another band. Probably, I don't see it happening. I wish it would, but I know Mike, and he's just his bar is up here. And if you're right here, it ain't gonna work. So it's got to be, That's
and I guess my philosophy to playing guitar kind of started to change over the years, especially when I came to college. And that happened, I think, generally in this scene. Kind of guitar solos fell out of fashion. That kind of, I used to want to be that flashy kind of lead guitar player and that kind of thing. And so in Honey, I mean, there are some little noodly, just some really simplistic lead parts, but I kind of got away. I still respect that kind of playing and stuff, and I still like to play some blues and jam, and on my own, that isn't. But yeah, it's interesting. I think just about how my taste evolved and the way that everybody influenced me in certain ways and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that scene in particular we're talking about influenced me a little bit, and I should have been more open-minded to the stuff I was talking about earlier, the Deado, the Apostasy, the what's the band from El Dorado, the brothers.
Oh man, I'm blanking now.
Dean Book and his brother were in
I know what you're talking about.
Hostility.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's funny when you look back on it now that I'm older and I've talked to these guys and we're not in competition with each other. We're old guys hanging out and watching Faster Pussycat, 40 years old. I run into Grant a while back, 10 years ago, probably ran into Grant, the drummer for Dead Orchestra. And I told him the same thing. I wish we would have been a more tighter knit community because we really had something going, but we worked against each other as opposed to together. There's nothing wrong with me, the poser looking guy with the flashy clothes hanging out with the guy with the white t-shirt and the black shorts and the combat boot. There's not. But at the time I thought there was, And
well, that was everybody's pretty young, but I understand that. I felt that vibe myself, but I really didn't do a whole lot of. I was so young, I'm surprised my parents let me get away with as much as I did. But I think by and large, I think Lawrence is pretty good.
How'd you end up in Lawrence?
Oh, college.
Yeah.
Came up to go to school at KU graduated in 94. So came in the fall of 94. Spent a good deal of time here. Went back to Wichita for a few years during a hard time in my life, and then got back up here and definitely am enjoying myself. Saw a show last night. So that was actually my first indoor show since everybody was locked down and so on. I've attended a few cool patio shows, and everybody's vaxxed and so on. It gets in. So, Lawrence is a good community. There's a really nice sense of community here.
I've only been there a handful of times, but every time I went, it was pretty cool. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about going somewhere, doing something, hitting the sidewalk, and trying to maybe get a gig, maybe get signed, maybe get something. So we would go to Lawrence and pass out flyers and drop off VHS tapes, videos that had 3 of our songs, us performing live in concert because we were so cool. So we dropped those off, and it would end up in the promoter's trash can probably, but we made the trip up to Lawrence several times just to do that. And at one place in particular, we've talked about it on the show several times, is the Bottleneck, which is a very cool place, and everybody in the world's played the Bottleneck.
That's the last gig I played. I had a band in the early aughts. We're talking 2003 and 2004. Up here, well, it wasn't my band, but a part of a band, and we sort of reunited, so to speak, in December of 2019 at the Bottleneck, playing with William Elliott Whitmore, who's a pretty recognizable name by now for a lot of people, but we had played with him a lot in the past, and so it was really fun. And we may, I'll name check him. His name's Sean Bergman, but I do some singing. We both play guitar, but he's kind of the main singer, but he's a part of quite a bit of projects. So it's kind of just play it by ear kind of thing, but there may be some things in the future. And if I can do another plug, because it kind of relates to what you were saying, we're just a kind of sense of community.
Plug away.
Well, I've been doing on Bandcamp. I have a project with a really talented percussionist named Jackson Graham, and we're kind of an odd couple because he's formally trained at KU in music. I can't read music. Right. It's all by ear for me, but he plays vibraphone, and so we've been getting together and just doing these improv, kind of almost, I don't want to say psychedelic, but ambient kind of improv. Is just totally improvisation, just listening to each other. And I just got a Facebook message yesterday from, I don't know who, but from the Replay Lounge, which is nice, one of the more popular spots in town to play a gig, and so it's just word of mouth actually still exists despite how much we use social media now, but you don't see as many flyers around town. But I think, and there's a lot of people in town who are part of several projects, and so I'm pretty shy about things. So it's great to kind of dip my toe back in the water, and despite how kind of nerve-wracking it can be, it's just the feeling of what it's like to perform. I'm sure it's just it's kind of hard to put into words, but there's a real energy if the show's going well, and so.
Yeah, if things are going right, it just kind of runs itself. It's effortless.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is. You don't even think about it before you know it. It's over with. It's like, wow, that was 2 hours of my life that I kind of remember some of it, but everybody had a good time.
Yeah. Exactly.
What show did you see last night?
It's this band called Crumb. Probably the oldest guy there. So I'm turned on to new stuff, by hanging out with younger guys, and so Dave, thanks Dave, was nice enough to buy me a ticket, and I don't know how I describe him. I would just recommend checking him out.
I think Dylan's familiar with them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just gonna hop on. Yeah, that's cool. They're definitely like indie rock for sure. Like a kind of not really psychedelic, but yeah, they had a pretty good EP in 2017 that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're pretty good. They've definitely gotten a name for themselves in the indie community as of late, I would say. So.
For sure. There are a lot more people there than I expected. And I've got that. My brother gave me that first EP on vinyl, so that's nice to have around. But yeah, great, just all of them great musicians. For those people who know the band Stereo Lab from the 90s, well, they may, I say the 90s, but similar sound. So then just for those who are aware of that band, it's yeah, like I said, I don't know if I said already, that was my first indoor show. So um, since everything kind of got crazy, I did say that. But yeah, good time, and back and good to be seeing live music again. So
Yeah, we've talked about that on the show quite a bit. I mean, we started the show, last year, and saw the pandemic come on. We saw concerts cancel. I had Rolling Stone tickets that were up in the air for a year and a half. Whether you want to refund or get the tickets and reschedule, what do you want to do? It took forever. Uh,
yeah,
unfortunately, the refund process last week. So I got my money back, and the concert is tonight in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl, which is outdoors, and it's supposed to rain tonight. So I don't know if that's a blessing in disguise or not. You know, I could still hold my own in the rain going to a concert. Lord knows I've done it. I've done it before. It wouldn't be the end of the world. My deal was it's on a Tuesday night now instead of a Friday like it was originally scheduled to be on. But yeah, well, so missing that tonight. But yeah, we know what you're talking about on the live music thing. Getting back in indoors to arenas to whatever. I mean, I've seen a couple concerts since they lifted the ban and let everybody start going back out and seeing stuff. And then you were talking about the age gap, and you were talking about the guys you hang out with and how you kind of get turned on to stuff. Well, that's Dylan's perfect influence and why he's here with us today. I mean, old man Joe's not here.
I
Just
saw
kidding.
that Joe's still rocking some hair though.
You know what? Joe's a hair farmer, so he could do this. He could do this today, and in 6 months he'll look like you. I promise you. Mine don't grow anymore. It just don't. It ain't worth messing with. I cut it a long time ago. I kind of wish I hadn't, but whatever. It's gone. But yeah, Joe can grow it back just like that. It's unbelievable what he does with his hair.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, and to your point, different generations getting together and talking about their common interests and introducing one another to new interests. That's
yeah.
that's some of my favorite conversation with people.
Yeah. And Joe's single, never been married, don't have any kids, and he's still out there. He's like you, Zach. He knows a lot of guys younger than him. He knows a lot more about music and stuff. Him and Dylan have more in common these days than me and Joe do. Back in the old days, me and Joe knew the same things, the same bands. We knew everything about what each other were thinking, and now he's advanced. I'm the married guy with kids and grandkids and all that good stuff, but Joe's still out there in the mix and listening to new music. He knows you drop a name and he knows, oh yeah, I know that band. Oh yeah, I've seen them. Oh yeah, they were here last week, or whatever. He's in on that. So Dylan's the same way. And matter of fact, Dylan's the one that brought up the topic the other day of a show he saw Sunday night at Trees. Is that right?
It was Sunday night in Deep Ellum, actually.
Deep Ellum.
But yeah, it was a pretty good show. We went and saw. I say we. My girlfriend and I went out and saw Kikagaku Moyo, which is a Japanese psych rock band, and they are based, out of Japan, and they came all the way over here to humble Dallas, Texas, which was kind of, I'm sure it was jarring, for a band to come all the way out here and just end up in a bar in Dallas and now going to Kansas and all that. It's definitely a different kind of culture. But it was really good. They had a big, long, 10-minute jam opening where they just were playing ambient sounds on a sitar and all these little keys and stuff. And it was really cool. Yeah, I had a good time. It was definitely a little bit later than I wanted to stay out on a Sunday night. But especially having to get here at 6 a.m., it was a little bit tough. But it was a good time. Yeah. It was a.
Oh, that's awesome.
show.
That's awesome. They played in Lawrence as well, and that's one of those where I was kicking myself for missing it. I was planning on going, and I don't know, spaced it off or something, but pretty popular in Lawrence, and it's really cool. As you're saying, they're here from Japan, and then we've got local bands opening, and just so. And we've had Lawrence we've had some other bands. There's I wish I could remember their name. They're an all female band. That was just great. And I'm blanking on their name, but also from Japan. And it's amazing. And Lawrence I guess maybe because we're a college town, we will attract acts that would rather come here probably than Kansas City. You know, you'd think a lot of bands would go to KC. And that's always been the case ever since I came up here at 18.
When we talked about last time, we talked about Lawrence on the show, and we talked about the bottleneck. We referred to radio at the time, what was going on at the time. The grunge scene was happening in Seattle, but not everywhere else yet. And Soundgarden had played probably that week that we came down to push our flyers and our promo pack to the guy at the bottleneck. Soundgarden had just played there recently, seriously within the week. And I saw the flyer up on the wall, and I'd heard of them, but that was about it. And then by the time we got back to Wichita, within weeks or months, they ended up on a soundtrack to a movie somewhere. They ended up with the Loud Love coming out. They ended up with, it all happened really quick. And next thing you know, that's those guys I saw on the poster at the bottleneck. So they were playing those places because nobody else listened to that stuff.
Yeah, there's the acts that have played the bottleneck. It's just an incredible range and just incredible artists. And I've seen many awesome shows there myself over the years. So that's, I've never, I would have loved to have seen Soundgarden. I saw a few of those grunge bands, but
I've never.
Speaking of radio, I used to be on the college station here while I was in school. So I've got a little bit of experience with that. They have what they call alumni freeform, where they let the oldsters come back, while between classes, class sessions or semesters, and that everything has changed. It seems to me to be more complicated than necessary now, but it's been fun to get back in there and get on the radio a few times over the last few years.
I actually also worked a radio station down. I was in San Marcos, and it's a lot of tech now. It's everything's digital, and you just have to roll with the automation system now. And
it's crazy.
Yeah.
They don't even have a DJ there when I started, you had to put in you had to start at 3 a.m, and now it's just automated. There's nobody even there. So things have changed, and nobody's spinning vinyl. I'm a vinyl dork, and that's kind of what I spend too much money on. But I get that from my dad, and that's where I honestly get a lot of musical taste from my folks as far as some of the older stuff. And my dad's pretty receptive to new stuff, but yeah, I grew up just listening to his record collection, and I've stolen. I promise I'll give him back, Dad. I have quite a few of his records here at the house. So, but yeah, so.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. I see a lot of stuff about you and your dad on Facebook, and I know he was somewhat of an influence to you. I just wonder what was he listening to when you were growing up?
Oh, they're hippies. I mean, when the disco scene hit, they hated that, so they gravitated kind of towards country at that point. That he's got a ton of Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, that kind of thing. But one of my first memories ever was being a little kid. I'd have been like 3 or 4, and he was listening to The End by The Doors, and I was just terrified. And I was like, "What is this?"
No.
Because everything from he's a fan of Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris.
Wow,
just a big range. I saw Emmylou actually a few years ago. That was really great. And mom's a big blues fan actually. So I have a love for blues, jazz. I wish I could play jazz. I kind of try to. But I keep trying to grow, as a guitar player, but I try to write songs. But should we talk about the project we did for James, or do you want to?
Yeah, because you brought it up earlier about those guys, I didn't know that those guys were in Honey. I knew Casey was, but I didn't know about the singer.
Ken, yeah,
Kenny. Yeah. I didn't know that. I guess I I know I've heard the Honey CD or cassette tape or whatever it was. I've listened to it. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't know the
Well,
guys in the
thank
band.
you.
All I knew was Casey. It was something Casey was up to. I didn't.
Yeah, I can't listen to it. I mean, it was a very good experience, and that's the only time I've been in like a quote real studio. But it's hard, I was so young, but
Yeah, so that
but yeah,
we actually brought up James's story on last week's episode because we were
oh,
talking
did you?
about COVID and he was
Right.
one of the first guys to before, I mean, as soon as he passed away is when I got the news that there's something going around called COVID, and then next thing you know they say, oh, that's what James died of. It's like it all was
Yeah.
starting to come together.
That's when I mean, I was taking things seriously, but that's when it really hit home for me, and it was such a sad loss. But I think I really felt we did a great job, if I may say so, in paying tribute to him. I don't know if you want to describe that really quickly, or
Yeah, I mean, Casey invited me to be a part of it, and my intention was to be the singer, or to trade back and forth with Kenny as on vocals. But Kenny's voice was pretty solid, and mine was not so much. I've been out of practice for years, and it's one of those things you kind of take it for granted. I'm a singer. I'll always be a singer. Well, not if you don't practice, sir, and not if it's an
Yeah.
instrument. You got to keep it in shape. You got to work with it.
Definitely.
You got to use it every day, and I don't. So once I started laying down the tracks for that song, I listened to it, and I was just shaking my head. I just couldn't believe I couldn't pull it off. So I was better.
No, you're in there though.
I was
You're
better
in
at the
there.
oohs I was better at the oohs and the ahs.
You got that that higher. But I think it worked great, and we changed. We covered Nutshell, FYI, for you listeners and viewers, by of course Allison Chains, and
I'll have to put that on the Rockapedia page so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I've got a link to that. I can put it out there.
but Casey did a good job of kind of organizing things and putting that together, and I think we, especially for all of us being in different locations and working in that way, it seemed fairly organic, considering.
That was a perfect example of recording during COVID. Of a band performing during COVID.
And it's one example, if I may be a little cheesy, of kind of therapy, or kind of a catharsis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a way to try to deal with grief as far as James passing, and then there's a camaraderie amongst the rest of us, and it's a really, really beautiful experience.
Yeah, he was just a good guy. His wife, his widow now, she's a wonderful lady. I've known Nicole and James. I mean, back in the old days. I mean, for years I knew them, and they grew apart and got back together, got married. We're creating this life together, and then this happens. It's a sad deal. But it was definitely a pleasure doing that. Just so you know, like when I saw, so Casey kind of gave me an idea. He said, "Hey, when we do the recording or we do the video, here's what we're going to do." Kind of gave me some ideas, and then everybody did their own thing a little bit. Well, when I did the actual recording, it was through my phone. I had an app on my phone, so I recorded the vocals through my phone, and then I was in a closet with coats and jackets and stuff hanging. And I recorded in a closet at the house, and then I came here to the studio, and that's where I set up the microphone and put the headphones on and act like I was recording it here. So it looks like I'm really doing the work in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
I was in a coat closet.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Little trivia for you. Hey, we got to wrap it up, Zach. I appreciate you joining me, man, and we're going to do this again because we got lots more stuff to talk about, okay?
Hey, that would be awesome, and hopefully I'll have a little more sleep than I've had a few moments of difficulty articulating myself, but the memories are still there, and I'm so flattered that you'd have me on, Mike, and Dylan. It's nice to meet you as well. I'm sure the three of us could talk music all day, probably. So yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, Zach. You have a great day out there. Stay warm in Lawrence, Kansas, and we'll see you next time, sir.
All right. You both take care.
All
Good
right,
to
buddy.
see you.
Hey, thanks everybody
Bye.
for joining us on Rockapedia. You're listening to us, watching us on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. See you later.